It's not official. Tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome everybody to our briefing on city safety and wellbeing strategy. We've got some very special guests in the room. Sergeant Miriam Murray Edridge, our City Missioner, lovely Natalia from DCM, Mike, welcome to you, and Millie. And then I'm just going to hand over to you, Sahai, in a minute when I'm going to steal your thunder and acknowledge that it was approximately 1 year ago that we started the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan. I am going to be listening intently, so councillors, if you do have any questions, lovely Tian, catch your eye, because this is kaupapa that we're all very interested in and it's very complex. And I'd like to welcome anyone that's not from council in the room too. Thank you, Malcolm. Great to have you in the council room today. Great. Okay, kia ora. And with that, Sahai, I will hand over to you.
Oh, kia ora koutou. It's so nice to be in front of you all. Finally, I think we've been talking about this since the training started, so it's really nice to see you all here today. I do also apologise for the length of the report, but there's a lot. I know that some people appreciate detail. I did try to keep everything in the executive summary in a nice package, but I've got some opening remarks to open the discussion with today. So I'll take... I'll start with the opening remarks. Last week marked, thank you, Councillor Foon, marked 1 year since Council approved the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan. Over the past 12 months, a small but very dedicated team has worked to translate that plan into a program of work that is enduring, it's integrated and grounded in the knowledge, experience and previous decisions of Council. From the outset, the focus was to move beyond strategy and into delivery, creating an action-oriented plan that could be implemented on the ground. By the end of June last year, we had recruited and trained a completely new frontline service, our urban liaison officers, strengthened our investment and partnerships with community patrols, and mapped a new approach to responding to homelessness across both council and the wider sector. In July, we established the Safety Hub and welcomed the Māori Wardens, led by the Regional Leadership Group, into the city to partner with us in a meaningful and sustained way. Around the same time, we introduced the Safety Points Network and began convening regular safety forums with key community partners and stakeholders. In August, we also pivoted some of our focus to Newtown, responding to community concerns by running a short-term safety project aiming at lifting visibility, engagement and addressing a number of practical fixes in the areas of highest concern. The closeout report for that work has been included in the briefing packs circulated to councillors. By October, we had also reset and centralised the city's CCTV network, significantly strengthening our ability to monitor activity in the CBD and support police and frontline responses in real time. Around that same time, the Homelessness Coordination Service became operational, bringing together agencies and services in a much more strategic, coordinated way to support and create bespoke plans for some of the city's most vulnerable people. I do also want to acknowledge the key partners in joining me today, but also in joining me in all the briefings to date since the year has gone by. Sergeant Miriam Bentley, who oversees the beat and retail crime sections, Murray Edridge, Natalia and Mike, who have from the get-go known that this would be a game changer in the way that we apply practical approaches to solving some of the most complicated challenges that we could face. Today, we're able to report back on the progress of this work, the systems we have put in place, the partnerships that have been strengthened and the early outcomes we're starting to see. This report does not claim that city safety has been fixed. The issues facing our city are complex and evolving. What we hope this report provides is a clearer picture of what is happening on the ground, the issues we're assessing, the pressures that we are seeing across the city, and importantly, the practical solutions we're working through alongside our partners and the community. Alongside this program of work, the team also went through significant internal change, establishing a new and focused City Safety and Wellbeing business unit, bringing together frontline operations, harm prevention, and community partnerships into a single coordinated function. Together, this work is creating the foundation for a more integrated and sustained approach to safety and wellbeing across the city. I'm happy to open it up for discussion.
Kia ora, Sahai. Thank you. Any questions from our councillors? Councillor Chung.
Thanks very much, Sahai. Much appreciated. Can you tell me if we've actually been able to reduce the number of people rough sleeping on the streets in the CBD?
I'll lead with Millie first, but then I can add. Yep.
When we established the coordination service, I think early on we said in these early stages you won't necessarily see the numbers on the street reduce. We're really looking at the background and progressing individuals through systems and assessments that they weren't able to prior. So while through this specific cohort we're focused on a wide cohort of 30, but the service is focusing on a very specific group of about 5 individuals. Those numbers you won't see reduced at this stage, but I can tell you from the work that's happening behind the scenes, there's been huge progress in a small number of those individuals. And so, yeah, ultimately, no if in terms of the number of people on the street through this specific service. You'll see numbers reduced through the wider array of social services doing their work. But in the background, the progress and the pathways that have opened are pathways that we didn't have open before.
Can I also add that we were going to include a specific case study on the homelessness coordination service, but in discussion with the partners, we think it's probably best if we speak to it. And I wonder if I could open it up to our partners to maybe add some information.
Thanks. It's partnership. Just speaking to that point, Millie has answered that, and I can speak to the case study a little bit as well, but there are so many other pressures that are not just related to what the council are trying to do. You in fact are a partner in looking for solutions and supporting the other organisations who are doing lots of other things outside of this partnership to reduce the number of people rough sleeping, but there are huge systems and political pressures that are not helping reduce the number of people rough sleeping, but we're advocating in those spaces in addition to and outside of this partnership. So just, yes, Millie's right, the numbers haven't reduced, and in fact my concern is that we'll continue to see them rise, but that's not as an impact of what this is trying to achieve. In relation to that case study, that is one person who had been sleeping rough who is now in some accommodation, and Murray can share a little bit about that, but it's a huge amount of resource, time, energy, money, organisations well stepping outside of their remit to try and find bespoke solutions, and that's what's so exciting about this.
That's a nice segue to me, thanks Natalia. This is not a city safety report, it's a city safety and wellbeing report. And our interest is ensuring that everyone in our city is safe and everybody is well. I think the thing that sits for me at the moment with the Homelessness Coordination Service is it's a very customised and nuanced approach that understands people's circumstances and responds to it accordingly. If I might be so bold, I would say that's in direct contrast to what we're seeing from central government at the moment in the implementation of move-on orders. And I want to acknowledge Andrew Little, the Mayor, for being prepared to sign a letter last week that said we don't want move-on orders in Wellington. We all acknowledge the issues. What we don't agree on is what is the response to those issues. And move-on orders is a blunt instrument, and it's the polar opposite of what we're trying to do in the Homelessness Coordination Service. If I can give you a little bit of detail around the case study that we allude to, it's someone that you'll probably all know, but I won't name him. He's in his early 30s. He's been in a state of intoxication and affected by drugs for the last 18 years. So you can do the sums and work out when that started. There's a number of medical conditions that he has associated with his upbringing in life and the circumstances ever since. Since, I don't know what date it was, probably 6 weeks ago. Yep. And Miriam knows him well because police tell me that he was on their arrest sheet most days, sometimes multiple times in a day. Since having spent 2 weeks in Rimutaka, he then came to us at Tipapuri in Torrey Street. He has been 6 weeks now, completely dry. He lives in an apartment accommodation at the top of 58 Torrey Street. He has a one-on-one, 24/7 support service. Now, nobody else in the city has that. And so he can't, under his bail conditions, leave the building unless one of my staff accompany him on that trip. Now, you might say that's extreme and that's really costly, and both of those assertions would be correct. However, the cost of not doing it exceeds that significantly. He's reconnected with his whānau. He's had his first benefit payment, which was a nervous moment for us because we wondered whether he would spend it on drugs and alcohol. He made a really good decision. He bought himself a tattoo. Now, you might think that's, and I say it flippantly, but in reality, that was a big decision for him because every other benefit check in the last 18 years has probably gone on to illicit substance. He's talking about his future. We're planning with him. He will hopefully, and it's early in the journey, he will hopefully come out of this and be able to live a good and productive life. Prior to this, he was a complete challenge to the city. The difficulty he created for police, for social services, for the community at large, because he offended often against members of the public in his own way. But we've seen a change here, and the change is because of nuance and specific focus. And Millie alluded to 30 people. We've identified the 30 most challenging rough sleepers in the city, and we are responding to them individually. Now, that's going to be a bit of a journey, but I want to acknowledge the council's courage in doing this because this is bold. I don't think this is done anywhere else in the country in this form, and you've been prepared to invest in it. And early days yet, but we're doing something that's really, really unique and special. And we've got good agencies, good community agencies, good government agencies in the city. What this does, it helps them connect together in a way where we eliminate the gaps. And so people falling through the gaps, hopefully, is a thing of the past.
Thank you, Murray. I just wonder, Mike, would you like to give us a bit of an intro to your mahi and background, but also what you're seeing through this program?
Kia ora koutou, ko Mike Hinton Tukuinga, I'm the CEO of Hiringa. First, I'd like to I'd just like to thank the council for taking a joined-up approach. I think that's made a big difference. We work in an area where we're constantly put in silos so we compete against each other, which is really just a waste of time, effort and money. And once the RFP's finished, we then are asked to collaborate. And what's really wonderful with this process, we've been asked to collaborate from the get-go. So we're maximising the resources we have and working together. The three people to my left, they are the experts in the field. I'm lucky enough to have an organisation that provides other support, another way where we can help people. So to the question, are we reducing the number of people sleeping rough in the city? The answer would be no, not yet. We're still working on different things. But then if I looked at wellbeing, are we, with the help of the council, creating better lives and providing opportunity for people to make better decisions? Murray's just highlighted that. If we had a happiness scale or register, then we could possibly measure that, but we don't. We're bound to measure it by widgets or numbers. When we're dealing with human beings in this space, they're probably not an accurate reflection. I use the example that Murray's used. That man made a decision to get a tattoo. Great. That's one decision. But what we don't measure, what we don't see, is the impact on the whānau around him or the community that he lives in, which is extraordinary. And it makes a real difference in not only his life, but his community. So every day, the Mission, DCM and the police are making that difference. Does that remove one person off the street? Don't know, couldn't tell you. But what I can tell you, that the people coming to Hiringa, it's made a real difference on the ability to start participating in their lives in a manner that they're capable of and making some decisions. It's a big journey. So that's what we do at Hiringa. We'd like to support everybody. We're not the expert at anything, but we just like to support people in doing what they do. And these two are good. And supported by the police, I think this project's going to make a hell of a difference long term. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Mike. And Murray, just sorry for moving on quickly, just want to acknowledge your continual mahi staying in this space, and you too, Natalia. And with that, Sergeant Miriam Bentley, would you like to just give us an overview of what you're seeing through the program?
Yeah, sure. I guess speaking to the homelessness coordination, and I guess starting with that mail that Murray and Mike have spoken about, the biggest thing for me and my lane that I'm in is the reduction of harm that person has caused for the last 16 years of my policing career. I was taken back when Millie said to me, "Oh, we're going to start here." And I said to me, "Why are you starting at this person is easily, in my books, someone that he ticks every part of that safety perception, harm towards females, community. He was the top of the list." And I just said to her, "Are you sure you just don't want to try someone else first, and we'll build ourselves up and we'll work up to him?" And she said, no, we're starting at this person. And I can tell you, I remember the day, it was Monday the 9th of February when he was released out of Rimataka and straight into city mission. And it's now the start of the 6th week, and there have been 0 calls for service in relation to this male. We're going from, I've been in the police 15 years, where I've dealt with this guy rough sleeping in his teenage years, to 3 or 4 calls at least a day, mainly around how he comes across and the perception in which he, around the safety in the city. And there have been 0 calls for service in 6 weeks. And I've got colleagues of mine going, "Oh, what's happened to such and such?" And I said, "Don't worry, he's in the right place, and we're doing well at the moment. So we need to keep that going." And I mean, there will be hiccups along the way, but given that it's been 6 weeks, the hiccups can be addressed in a way that can promote continuous progression. So it's not going to be, it may be things we can address within our agencies, things we can address alternatively to continue that progression going. But it's been very well noticed in the judicial and within the policing realm for the last 6 weeks. At least. Those that don't know me, my name's Miriam Bentley. I'm a police officer here in Wellington. I look after our 2 beat teams, so the teams that are on the street, and our retail crime team. So there's 26 people in our space, and we pretty much look after everything city orientated, from retail crime, which seems to continue on most every day, as well as that harm part of the public place disorder, antisocial behaviour, and housing complexes within the city. So it's a wide range. It's just pretty much everything Wellington City my teams deal with. So that's me.
Can excuse me, sorry, Laurie. If I may add, I apologise. I should have also acknowledged Te Whatu Ora, Paul Oxnam, who's the regional director of the mental health section of health, as well as Rebecca, and I can't remember her last name, Bishop, thank you, who's the operational manager that is assigned to, that we call the MOG, the Management Operational Team. Both of their participation, not only in the governance but in the operations, has been a game changer for the way that we've been able to work through the systemic gaps that are currently present in the system, but also the way that we can join up and work together to collaborate to really try to problem solve some of these really complicated challenges.
Yeah. Thank you, Miriam. It's great to hear. Amazing, your mahi. Councillor Abdurrahman, you have a question?
Kia ora whanau. Thank you first. And I just want to ask specific to the Newtown project. The report lists several completed actions like the CCTV and the vegetation and the lighting. What indicators will council use to measure whether this intervention have actually improved safety, well-being, and community perception?
We have a survey out in the field that's just recently closed with the residents that's been focused on or targeted to residents in Newtown that we were engaging with at the beginning of the project. We're hoping to get some lessons there around what the perceptions look like. Although the project has closed, we're still really engaged with the Residents Association and the other stakeholders that we've worked really closely with, and as well as the police assigned to that area, who have been helping us with the understanding how the response to the CCTV has worked. We have trialled, you'll see that we're doing the trial on the ATM decals to see if that changes behaviour around people begging right outside. We'll be working again with the community to survey that trial to see what kind of responses we get and see if that's something that we will continue to work through and potentially bring into the CBD as well. But at this stage, because we're quite limited in our resource, we are going through a survey mechanism first. We still obviously monitor the hotspots through CCTV. The observations of those CCTV reports go into our central data plan, as I've mapped out in the initial report, and we'll be able to draw some insights out of those.
Cool, thank you. The report also suggested that this place-based approach could be scaled to other areas. When I move an amendment regardless to the Newtown, we know it was a bit of a challenge and to go through it. And what criteria will council use to decide when and where similar safety responses could be applied? Example, my colleagues from the east, they might say Kilbirnie will be next where we need to be doing some work. So I just want to know what criteria you would be using and going forward, or you need an amendment or motion similar to that I previously did.
It really does come down to resource, Councillor. We have been acting on a very city CBD focused plan that was quite clearly set out in the last LTP amendment to focus on the CBD. Our resources and our staff are focused on the initiatives within the CBD, and any assessment or situational assessment or estimation is based on what we can deliver in that space. So any SEPTED assessments, any hotspots that come up, we try to, like we did with Newtown, pivot and see where we can fill in that gap on a short term. But from a scaling up or scaling down, that's resource dependent.
My last question would be regards to what is next for Newtown specifically, because the project now is closed, but there are some suggestions that you already mentioned, including the lighting around the Wilson Street.
Yep.
And it was not budgeted at the time, and how much it costed so much, and how you're going to approach some of the issues that you still need to be addressing since the project is closed, and how you want to go forward.
So I have some good news about the Wilson Street car park. The lighting will be installed there in March. That came hot off the press before I press send, just after I press send on this report to you. In terms of the CapEx allocation, we've consolidated that. I'll talk to James about that tomorrow. But that's been worked out across the council business units, and I can say in March that should be turned on and that should be resolved. But again, for projects like this one, it's important that we realise that the SEPTED or the assessments need to come first to work out the solutions. The engagement then needs to happen with the community. I mean, we worked really closely, the project team worked really closely with the leads in the community to really map out and identify the areas that needed fixing and what those hold-ups were. We were then able to just really get in there and crack a whip from a project perspective to get things organised and get them teed up quickly.
Councillor Rogers. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess my first block, if I'm allowed another block later, of questions are kind of related to some of the partners. And I guess I was wondering what progress has sort of been made, particularly around observation number 2, which was that a small cohort of vulnerable and high needs individuals were driving some of that repeat demand. I think we recognised earlier on in the program that a lot of the barriers were getting people access to mental health services and those sorts of provisions that are much better suited to be provided by Te Whatu Ora. Have we made much progress with them in terms of provision for people on the street or who are in high needs places at the moment?
Yes, and some on a case-by-case basis. I think having both Rebecca and Paul at the table has given an opportunity for them to see firsthand, even for their own frontline teams, to see the challenges that they're working in, and especially the overlay of mental health and addiction, and then an overlay of disability on there. Without speaking too much to it, I know there's a business case has been put forward through Te Whatu Ora for increase in harm reduction and AOD resourcing within their frontline teams. I can't speak too much onto where that has got, but those are the types of, I guess, those system changes or increasing resourcing. I know alongside Te Whatu Ora in the addiction space, their commissioning side is doing some separate work outside of this service, but aligning it with some of the findings we're finding. So I think on that broader scale around health, those pathways on a very micro level have started to evidence that it works, so that they can then look at it from a commissioning level on a greater platform. Health is one of the barriers we've had. Housing is the next barrier, and I know some conversations have started in that space.
Can I add to that? I mean, mental health and addictions are the single largest issues that confront people and that we have to deal with. The case study we've gone into in some detail today, having Paul at the table and having access to mental health services and addiction services has been a game changer in that individual's case.
Fantastic. The other partner, I guess, we've got police involved, but less so, I guess, to a lesser extent, corrections. And I was just wondering if there had been a change in the number of people being released with no fixed abode.
But however, we have had, since the result of that case study, we've had a really great communication with corrections, the leadership team especially. They are and will be attending our next strategic governance group on Friday, where we'll be discussing how they can partner with us in a more meaningful way, as well as MSD.
Just on the no fixed abode, we are receiving corrections data on the numbers of individuals under no fixed abode in the Wellington City area. So we are able to start getting an oversight into what that looks like. I can say that those numbers have reduced, but that is more probably a wider environmental factors, because that is a key transition point that we struggle with.
Every time we get to meet with a minister or someone in a government department, we're talking about how this coordination service is working and could work. Last Thursday I had the honour, I'm not sure, it's 5:30 in the morning, of going out with Minister Potaka and Viv Rickard from MSD and shared with them about what we're seeing. There were lots of people sleeping rough in the CBD that morning, and got to share what some of the barriers are, which are their own government departments. MSD has getting in the door has been challenging, and access to housing, and saying what works is partnership, is collaboration. Our government departments, when they step outside of we only do this and start looking at what they could do to support this person, those are the things that make a difference. And we have, I think we have momentum. It's slow, but I think we're heading in the right direction of going, collaboration is the thing that's going to work, and it's not just us, it's health, it's housing, it's corrections, it's all of those agencies that have a touch point, and there's a real push, I think, from the Minister around bringing together some of those government departments.
And it's more than just an all-of-government approach. We're demonstrating an operating model that is deeply integrated and does more than just talk about issues and walk away. We talk about issues and work through them, and that's the biggest difference in the models that we're seeing.
Can I ask one more?
Yeah.
And then I guess the last one, thinking about our partnerships in this space, was just with the grants that we had provided through the City Safety and Wellbeing strategy. just whether as part of the September report there was going to be some, I guess, discussion about how effective some of those were, or sort of what the strategy is going forward for the allocation.
Yep. Sorry, yes. So there will be a discussion. We're approaching this part, the funding for this service as a seed funding, and are speaking about it as a seed funding with government, so that we can effectively make it a long-term sustainable service that local government doesn't necessarily need to be at the centre of or fund. We are an innovative. We're trying something new. We're an innovative concept with the backing and seed funding for us to try something different, evaluate it, and learn from it, and then apply it to future models of service. So the next, I think we're planned for the May grants meeting to talk to it. I'm looking at Mark because there'll be two strategies. There'll be the nighttime care strategy that will be coming to you with the next iteration of the city safety plan, as well as, if not a heads up or a report, but certainly mapping out a way forward for the next iteration of the seed funding for this service.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you. Councillor Teffenbacher.
Firstly, can I start with I'm in awe of what you guys do. So when I say the rest of what I'm going to say, I 100% am totally in awe of what you guys do, because I know it's an incredibly hard job. So this is not meant with any disrespect. My concern is that as the city's safety and well-being, how much of that well-being is around the city's well-being? Because at the moment, obviously, I have a business in Courtney Place, for example, and yesterday, I had to go in and I had to ask someone to leave because we were about to open our shop, and I had a call from my 19-year-old girls who work in that shop, and I had to go down because it's unreasonable to ask them to do it. For their well-being and their safety, being put in that situation is not good. So I appreciate that we are looking for a solution for an incredibly hard problem. I'm not discounting that in the slightest, but my concern is, at the moment, it sounds as though it's a long-term solution, and my concern is as well that as a city we are going backwards and have been for a while, and that area in particular is under a lot of stress, and a lot of people will say we don't go there because we don't feel safe. Now, I walk down there every day because I live one street back, so I don't necessarily feel that unsafe. However, people's perception is actually reality for many people, right? So I'm not even having a go at the people on the street being violent or anything like that on a regular basis. They certainly urinate, they certainly defecate, which is a massive issue for me personally. Others might not care. But at the moment, we're seeing a long-term strategy. We're seeing the possibility of increased people sleeping on the street, and we see our city in a position where we may continue to go backwards. And I guess my question is there any way we can change it? Because I'm alarmed and I'm concerned while still being respectful.
Thank you.
Look, I think we all acknowledge the challenges, and in my various conversations with central government over the last week, it hasn't been, and at one point we were called simplistic by Minister Goldsmith. I don't think anyone's simplistic about this. We understand the issues. Where we differ is in how we respond to those. The Homelessness Coordination Service is focused very specifically on these 30 individuals, but every one of our agency works every day with individuals on the street. So just around the corner from you, I have a building that houses 70 men. Let's put it this way, it's an eclectic mix. We have drug dealers in there, we have violent offenders, we have sexual offenders. They're all people that are part of our community, and we're working through a process with them that hopefully means that they become more capable, more independent. But it takes time because the issues are so complex. So, our pushback about move-on orders in particular isn't about the nature of the issue, because the issue is real and clear. It's about how do we respond and how do we put those things in place. We have really capable agencies in the city, but every agency, I suspect, in the country is just smashed, is just full to capacity because of the demand we're seeing. Now, what is that? Is that an economic thing? Is that a socio-economic thing? Yes. The government has removed a number of the safety nets, so emergency housing is gone. That's difficult, and I'm not an advocate for emergency housing, but it was a place of last resort, and those people are now sleeping in your doorway. So that is the reality of circumstance. Do I have a simple solution? No, not at all. But we acknowledge the issue completely. Yep.
Yeah.
Just playing with the button. It's I completely understand your point of view. And I think it also comes to this as well. It's really tough when you have to categorise what type of homeless you are, whereas it's no longer a problem if you're just homeless. And the issue that we have as an organisation is, how do we address your particular issue, is to stop people getting into that position where they are chronically homeless with all the issues that come with it. So whilst we will deal at the sharp end, we also have to fill in the back end so people don't go that way. Now, we can't do that on our own, but collectively we can do that. So it is not a short-term solution. It's taken us a while as a country and as a society to get into this position. It's going to take a generation or two to get out of it. So we've got to understand that. If we're just going to put a Band-Aid over this big wound, it will bleed. All right? We have to stop the fuel. We have to stop people becoming homeless and going down that track. And that requires some courageous decisions from people just not at this table or not just at the organisation servicing the community. But the point that you raise about the wellbeing of the city is really well made, because we have to think of that as well. And one of the points that I have, what would well-being mean for you? All right, and where do we address that? All right, understanding all the issues that we're dealing with now. That's all.
So one more point, or not point, question really. So the other day I was at Courting Place wandering around, because I wander down there quite often, and a couple of people who you would label homeless, which I think we've got to get away from calling them homeless, because I think most of them are rough sleepers, and it seems to me, and you guys can argue the point, but I think you've already said that it's mainly a mental health issue and a drug addiction issue rather than necessarily a homeless issue, although that might fall into the same point. But two people arrived in cars and then hang out with their mates on the street. So we have an issue where we've created an environment where it's okay to be on our street even during the day. So if they were just sleeping there at night, for example, and then they were not causing any issues through the day or evening even, then you would probably have a much better, healthy city, if you like. But we've created an environment where it's okay to hang out on the street with your mates in a mattress, lying on the street. And so then more people actually tend to go there as well. So in a lot of the safety issues, or the feeling of safety, I feel, is actually during the day as much as it is during the night. So it's not a homelessness, because some of them are actually driving in cars to get there to hang out with their mates. Is there any way we can stop that? Because I mean, that frustrates me as well.
Look, I don't have an answer to that, but what I would say is what I've learned in the last 8 years as City Missioner, because I certainly wasn't in this place when I took on this job, is I've learnt to withhold judgment, because actually they may have driven there in their car, but they may have slept in their car overnight. I don't know. So I've learnt just to not judge circumstance based on what it looks like, and say, okay, so what's happening here and why is it happening? I mean, everyone needs community. That form of community probably isn't the most appropriate and does damage potentially to other things. So, but what does community look like for them, and how do we think about that? I mean, I can acknowledge that, we opened with the support of council, Whakamaru 15 months ago. We've had 85,000 people through the front door in that 15 months, which is bittersweet, as you can imagine. Lovely that people can come there. Sad that we've had that many people needing to come there and wanting to be part of something else.
My answer to that, you are 100% correct, that if you come 9, 10 p.m, there's about a third of what you see during the day on the street, give or take, maybe even less. But with those people that do gravitate towards those groups that are on the street, they're very much like-minded. They've come with alcohol and drug addictions, they come with a complex mental health, and they live in houses, but I wouldn't say they live in houses in a way that you and I live in a house. It's a squalor. And they may as well, it's the same. They're like-minded, they've burnt bridges with their own family. Through their alcohol and drug addictions, they've burnt bridges with their own family because they steal off them, not saying everyone, but examples of how, and so their family are the ones living on the street. So they gravitate, like-minded, gravitate towards them during the day. And then they're like, okay, well, I'm going back to my home. And then quite often we'll get one or two of the street whānau go with them for the night to stay in their houses in the suburbs. And then they'll end up just a night or two, and then they'll end up back on the street here. So that's where I see the same people that we're all dealing with, and I'm like, well, you've got a house, come on, mate, like drop you off there, let's get out of here. But it's that's their family, that's why they come in every day, drink, carry on, because they have the same behaviour and same cycle of their daily routine.
And just to speak to both Miriam and Mike's point earlier, all three of our agencies are working at both ends, both at the talking about the most marginalised, those people who are sleeping rough, that complex end, and all of our three agencies are working at that sustaining tenancies, supporting people who are already in homes to live well, to not come back out onto the street, or to prevent that cycle of homelessness. But it's hard, because Miriam's said why. There's still people who have a shelter but have continue some of those harmful behaviours. But I think that's the point. We're not just working at one end, we're working across the spectrum.
I guess with what Natalia said about sustaining tenancies, I've never ever seen some people get 17, 18, 19, 20 chances to have their home after the continuation, and it's just us going, okay, come on, this is how you need to respect and live in that home. It's easy giving someone a home, so to speak, if we had it, you know, but sustaining that in how they live and the complexities of their mental health, drug, alcohol addictions, it means that quite often it's not somewhere that you'd even, it's not very nice at all. So.
Can I just make a point on that as well? We talk about a lot of them come with complex needs and stuff like that. Quite often they gravitate to these people because these people are their community. They're the ones that understand them. They're the ones that don't judge them. They're the ones in the street that will look at them and give them a smile so they feel a part of that community, where many of us will bypass them or shun them, and so they feel detached as well. So as human beings, we like to feel as part of the collective, and this is basically, through circumstance or a lot of poor decisions, this is their community. And so we heal as many as we can, and we stop as many as we can from getting into such a sad space.
One last very quick one.
Yeah, I've got me little on the list and we can't keep that. So you go.
Just very quick. So is there any way we could create something for them to do during the day, somewhere different, where they can hang out with their mates, where it's not on Courtney Place or on the streets? Do we do any work on that thing? Because obviously if that's one of the issues is that they are hanging out in the street, they get joined because they want that camaraderie, what work do we do around creating that opportunity for them to spend time together, but not in a place where maybe it's causing a level of well-being to the city as a whole?
I think if you come I was at Whakamaru today for a meeting, and I left my own organisation, 10 minutes before that, and drove past Pastor Joe's on Taranaki Street. Like, we've got places that people spend their time, but you can't make people. So there are resources and places that people go for community. And I think we are trying to foster community in the places that people live, but it does require those neighbours to smile at that person and say, you are welcome here. And I know some of the community centres, particularly in Kilburnie, are really proactive at doing that. So I think we are doing it. And you'll see a lot of people who may have been on the street in those places. So it's happening.
And I just wanted to just wrap this up. One last comment on that. And putting aside someone's living situation, whether they're homeless, whether they do have a house, whether they're rough sleeper or a streetie, or whatever you want to call it, it isn't illegal to sleep, lie, beg in our city, even if it does make people uncomfortable. But if people are doing illegal or harassing behaviour, and we tell this to businesses when we engage, call the police. Illegal behaviour is illegal behaviour. It doesn't matter what their circumstances. And that's, say that to my staff as well. You don't accept unacceptable behaviour just because of someone's circumstance. So if that is happening, if there is illegal behaviour happening, we do push that a police response is required.
And just one more comment on that, just because, and I hope that you got this from the report, is that we are doing a lot of work so that the city doesn't look like it's welcoming the use of mattresses or sleeping bags or encampments. Through the integration of our frontline services and CCTV and police, we are trying to prevent it from happening and engaging with people early so that they know that we're aware of it. They know that we expect a different situation in the CBD, and when we have to, we do enforce. And so that's what that urban liaison team is there to do. Also engage with businesses to check in, to talk about what we're doing, and to also get that real-time engagement as well.
Can I just make a brief comment? And I don't want to keep the mayor waiting, but I want to tell you just a very quick story. I had a prospective donor come to visit a few weeks ago, very wealthy organisation that they represented, and he came in a very nice motor vehicle. It was a Tesla, a late model. Unfortunately for him, when he was leaving, he backed over a concrete wall and left his rear wheels in the air. There were about 8 to 10 homeless whānau sitting around a picnic table without anybody saying anything. They got up and they lifted the car off the wall and got him back on the road again. And he said, why did they come and help me? Because they don't look like me. And nobody asked them to. But what you will find in this community is if someone's in need, they will respond. So there is a community that works. It just looks a bit different.
Thank you, Murray. Mayor Little.
Thanks, Chair. Just acknowledging three things. First of all, the incredible work that you as a group do, but also your organisations individually do. As you've said, it's incredibly challenging. Acknowledging also that we know that the causes of homelessness and rough sleeping are incredibly complex, and you've spelled those out too. But also, thirdly, acknowledging the point that Carla was making, which is that whether we like it or not, the appearance of rough sleepers in the city can be off-putting to many people, and particularly, and I've had this from many business owners, particularly young people and young women who will experience some of the behaviours that they see and feel intimidated by it. The question I've got is, and this might be simplistic, but is there anything you can think of that, in addition to what you're doing at the moment, that could make a difference, that would make a difference, that would be a useful thing for the council to think about?
Can I just clarify, Your Worship? Do you mean with regards to rough sleeping and homelessness?
Yeah, with the work that you are doing, the work that the Homeless Coordination Centre is doing, the work that each of you are doing. Is there something that you could be doing if you were supported to do so, that would, given that it's a year on, we understand the complexity. There is still a community there in need of support and help. We've got one guy with the support he's got, and it's made a difference, at least for the last 6 weeks. Is there anything else we need to be thinking about should be happening that would assist the team and each of the organisations individually?
Mayor Little, it won't surprise you to know I've got lots of ideas. Most of them have been directed already to central government, because actually the funding that's required won't come from here. It needs to come from there. And but there's a number of things we could do, and we could do them reasonably quickly. One of the things we must do, and the pace of doing this has been too slow, is to fill all the available housing we have in the city. And that's mainly, again, directed at Kainga Ora, who have properties that are unutilised and underutilised at the moment. Because housing is part of the solution. It's not the solution, but it is part of the solution. And there's some things I believe we could turn around pretty fast if we had the right level of resourcing and support and some preparedness to be a bit bold at a central government level.
From a policing lane, our biggest I guess, I don't know how to articulate it, as mental health crisis intervention at the time. Mental health crisis intervention, I'm talking some sort of coordination where it removes us, because we're quite often, as an organisation, we know these people 9 times out of 10. We don't necessarily have a good relationship with them given their criminal history and or experiences with police in the past, and we're sitting there with them for 6 to 8 hours because there's no one that can prevent, we can't walk away. And so when you're talking resource and you're talking 7 days a week, 24/7, 7 days a week, where a police officer or someone within our organisation has to become involved in that crisis realm, where there's nothing able to happen at the time, that's when you take 1 or 2 or 3 police officers off a shift at once to deal with that intervention before. I've actually turned up myself, an example of it, with someone that was, I had to section them under 109, which is what we can use of the Mental Health Act, where it's critically necessary to intervene to prevent harm and or injury to that person, and taken them to ED and said, here they go, you find someone to come and sit with them because I'm not leaving until you do. And they'll because they're not coming to our cells. They need their mental health addressed. And that's the last and the worst place you could put them, waiting for a DAO to turn up. So that's me forcing the hand of, you come down here now, and then I'll leave. And then you transfer into the custody of mental health. But that's the biggest, I guess, the trigger point for us is that mental health crisis intervention at the time. Can't be done tomorrow, can't be done the following day, it needs to happen at the time.
My one's, I can't be as eloquent as Murray, and he's noted right on the head with the policemen and stuff like that. I think I've got a really simple thing about it. Don't give up hope. And that's across all of our community and all of our society. And this is a huge elephant we're eating, and we can't eat it alone. It will take a joined up approach, not just local government, not just central government, but community, to address this issue. What the council has done, in my opinion, you've taken that first step. You've engaged with community on a genuine level beyond just an outcome, beyond just a number. Let's build this relationship. Let's demonstrate how these relationships work and the difference they can make. Don't expect the result tomorrow. Don't expect it the next day. But don't give up hope and keep working down this tracks. You need to build up the networks that are going to join this approach. It's the only way it's going to work. Otherwise, we'll be fragmented and actually not doing what we should do collectively. So all of the practical things we do, but the support has to come collectively like this. Don't give up hope. That's my 2 cents.
Just to add from an operational perspective, recognising and acknowledging, of course, that the triennium plan has had city safety and wellbeing plan listed in the key focus for this triennium, that's heartening. Recognising also that Council made this decision to set up the City Safety and Wellbeing Plan and has supported it, and I guess trusted us in a new and different way of working, and also with the trust of my boss, James, that you have allocated money in the grants system to help us improve city safety and wellbeing outcomes, and allowed us to take a deliberate step away from just opening it up for funding, but actually being quite strategic with how we do that, and then allowing us to set up something like this, but also taking the funding for the plan and our initiatives in a very different way. So be mindful of that, and also in the sense that I've done in a short amount of time, did a very quick analysis of other city safety plans and models out there, not only here but also internationally, and I take heart in the fact that we, on that analysis, we are very different. Maybe it's because Wellington is compact and small and everybody knows everyone, but we're different in the sense that we use our enforcement very carefully and deliberately, but we lean on our partners in an operational way. We don't just, and I said this before, we don't just talk about it, we work it out together of how we approach these issues, not only around rough sleeping and homelessness, but when we talked about that, we did the analysis of the safety points and the outcomes of that. Those are real lives that we've made a difference in. We've made an impact through this team and the way that it works. And so just be mindful of that, be aware, and please talk to your constituents about it, because we want to engage and we want to keep on testing the way that we roll these out.
And just to wrap up on that, I think ultimately through this plan, through all the work that organisations are doing, there's a lot happening in the community. We could do more for sure, but ultimately it comes down to the person. They have autonomy over their own lives. They will make the choices they make. And so we can provide opportunities, bring the doors to them, but end of the day, it's their choice, even if it's uncomfortable for us, unless it goes into an area where there's more enforcement required. But at the end of the day, we can provide a platter of opportunities, but people's lives, they make their decisions, and we shouldn't be taking those decisions away.
Okay. Look, I think there are, I just want to acknowledge Councillor Randall. We're going to move on. We won't get time for your question, but if you could email it to Sahai and Millie, that would be great. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to thank you all, Miriam, Murray, Natalia and Mike, for coming in today. It's really important for us to hear this joined up story, and we do thank you for the mahi that you are doing and for staying in here with us as well. Team, just two quick questions for you. What is next for council? What decisions do we need to make next in this kaupapa? And the second question is, how can we tell the community what we are doing? You might want to take that one offline, so maybe we can talk about that later.
So next decisions will come in May with regards to the next grant funding allocation for both the Homelessness Coordination Service for the next financial year, but for this financial year with regards to care, the nighttime strategy.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you all again for being here. Thank you, councillors, for your questions and your care. I know that we all care greatly and we're all coming at it from different places and viewpoints, but just want to thank you all for the great mahi that you are doing for our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kia ora.